This is Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions with Alastair Lynch, Tom Rockliff and Dylan Leach.
As Lenny Kravitz once sang, it ain't over till it's over. Just ask Hawthorn. 11 points up with just under 30 seconds left. Willie Rioli, he goes bang. Darcy Byrne-Jones, bang. Port wins by a point. Could you just imagine how much chaos there would have been if the 5-minute warning was still in place? But I'll digress. I'll digress. Collingwood is back big time. The lid might just be coming off at Essendon, but it's going back on at Carlton. They're not even in the 8, folks. They're 10th right now. Geelong and the Giants go from unbeaten to beaten consistently. Don't underestimate the influence of this program. Ever since I said, can Geelong be shit? They haven't won. Just putting it out. The Crows got robbed again, when the club should seriously consider installing crim-safe products at their matches, given the amount of robberies that they've had in the past year or so. And the depleted Tigers, well, they just look toothless. Meanwhile, out west, Harley Reid has become the greatest discovery and investment anyone from Perth has ever made since they discovered iron ore in the Pilbara. The words predictable and boring can already be removed from the dictionary when it comes to season 2024 in the AFL. It's quite the roller coaster, and we're enjoying just about every minute of it. Well, most of it depends who you barrack for. Hello and welcome to another episode of AFL Unpopular Opinions. My name is Dylan Leach. Joining me like he does each and every week. Well, he would have loved this on the weekend. One of the great ball magnets of our time. He would have loved seeing that there were 2 players that got 40 plus over the last round, Noah Anderson and Nick Dakoff. It's the chairman of the Ball Pigs Association, Mr. Tom Rockliff.
Yes, thanks for having me, Dill. I reckon I could have walked out Saturday night and had 40 against Richmond as well.
You would have got 50. You would have got the half century. You would have equalled the amount of runs Glenn McGrath got on the Gabba one day against New Zealand with that.
They were dead set witches' hats, your mob.
They were appalling. And also joining me is Jack Daniels Man of the Week from Round 9, 1993, from the Footy record, Alastair Lynch.
That's a long, long time ago. That's complete with mullet as well.
That's you there, Alastair Lynch.
And I
Jack
remember
Daniels Man of the Week. Did you win anything for that?
Yeah, bottle of Jack Daniels.
That's a pretty good prize, isn't it?
Ironically so.
And look what they wrote about you. It said, Round 8 produced many outstanding performances. Gary Ablett just kicked 12. Anthony Modra, not Tony Modra, kicked 10 for Adelaide.
She's that stiff not to get the Jack Daniels.
There was also the outstanding 6-goal display from Fitzroy's part-time full forward Alastair Lynch that spurred his side to a vital victory in a low-scoring game against West Coast. You beat Lynch and you Lynch beat Ablett and Modra to a Jack Daniels Man of the Week
and kicked half the goals. Jeez, I must have been doing something special. But yes, I reckon the Ball Pig would have got 40.
You would have got 50.
I would have got 20.
Yeah.
But the problem is...
You would have got 20 playing in your current state.
You wouldn't have seen them, though.
Why?
Because now I hear the gate attendant at the Gabba said they saw a disgruntled Ned's bloody MC wander from the ground, duffel coat dragging along the ground.
Yes.
Is that correct? Surely not.
I left at 3/4 time.
Oh, why?
Let's get off to we'll get on to our unpopular opinions
shit.
now.
That's terrible.
You've dined out for 3 flags.
I've
just dragged the duffel coat.
Now listen here.
No.
Well,
listen here.
Yeah.
You've dragged the duffel coat with your 3 premiership bloody medals on it.
Like he won them.
Yeah.
And now he turns his back on.
Driving the slipper into the boys on the way out.
I was in the car park in the back corner, so you know what the Gabba trying to get out. The worst position for the listeners out there, if you get stuck in this back corner at the school, near impossible to get out for a good out. 3/4 time, everyone left. Richmond, they'd all gone. It was just walk straight out. Straight out. It was unbelievable. Never seen anything like it at the Gabba.
Now, look, I was against the idea of leaving a game early, and you never leave early, but I've changed. A bit like Lynchy with the draw, I've changed my tune. I left the Gabba at 3/4 time on Saturday night, and it felt liberating. I've got more than enough frequent flyer points when it comes to Richmond, good, bad, and ugly. I know, I'm just ready to cash them in. And in our song, they say, we'll never weak until the final siren's gone. Well, we weakened before we ran out of the Banter on Saturday night. I mean, Richmond's having a very bad period at the moment. Back-to-back losses by over 15 goals, 91 points against the Dogs, 119 against the Lions with, I think, the same score result as the 2007 grand final, someone pointed out.
Same total score.
Same total score, yes. Now, but the thing is, it's just... Watching Richmond over the last decade, you expected effort. Even at the start of the year, you expected effort. You expected lots of pressure, lots of turnovers. There was none of that on Saturday night. The Tigers have 20... Now, I get it. We've got 26 players to choose from at the moment and an injury list of about 17. It's horrible. And it gets worse because Sam Naismith, our backup ruckman,
Yes, that's no good.
is probably going to get a 4th knee reconstruction and probably won't play again.
Terrible.
It's a horrible situation. Half the team that are on there at the moment are premiership players, but it's clear that the star ones aren't there. And it's feeling like, well, the premiership players they were the role players in the premiership. They had their role to play, but...
Dusty, a role player.
Well, apart from Dusty, I'll get into Dusty in a minute, but...
Hey, you're not getting into Dusty.
No, I'm not getting into Dusty.
Not going to drive the slipper into him as well.
I would never sink the slipper into Dusty. But, I mean, the likes of Marlon Pickett struggling. He got 5 touches for the whole match.
Lockdown
5
on
touches.
Harris Andrews.
I mean, are we trying to
job.
get Marlon Pickett to 100 games or something? Jaden Short won the BNF in a premiership year. He wasn't that good. Shea Bolton's wasteful at the moment, and that's an understatement. I think Dusty... Dusty isn't what he used to be, but he still does the team thing. He still gets plenty of it, and there's still an excitement when he even gets near the football.
He's injured or sore, Dusty.
Yeah.
And he's weighed down by the Norm Smith medals around his neck.
Yeah,
I reckon
that's
you
true.
can cut him a bit of a break.
I am cutting him some
on,
slack.
mate.
But, and we hear talk of other clubs making an offer for it, but him in other colours, if he goes to another club, it'll look pointless in the history books. No one remembers Michael Jordan playing for the Washington.
You got a 3-page write-up on Richmond here.
Yeah, hang on. But what if he goes to the Suns and gets a flag?
Rioli is.
What if he goes to Carlton? Rioli's signed with the Suns.
Has he?
Yeah.
That's an exclusive, is it?
Yeah.
Done.
Lock it in.
Morris or Daniel, or both of them?
Daniel.
Daniel,
Yeah.
off to the Suns. Good on him. Yeah. But look, what I just want to see from Richmond, okay, is Adam Uze doesn't need to do all the press at the moment. He's not the fall guy for what's going on at the moment. I want to see more from the president. I want him to take a walk.
Why doesn't he leave? He should just leave now, shouldn't he?
Uze?
Not the president, the CEO. Brendan Gale should nearly just
Well,
hand over. I know that he's signed with Tasmania, and he's done an outstanding job. I don't think anyone would begrudge him for leaving now, would they? And let him move on and get into this new era.
Oh, I think a transitional phase, particularly with the Punt Road redevelopment, which has been his baby, is important.
So I think he's
very committed to trying to get that done. But I think as a Tigers fan, they'd really want to see a bit more from the president at the moment. Just going down Media Street, explaining where the club's at, because you have a look at the key pillars that have been at Richmond over the past 10 years and been part of the success. So Cochin, Jack Rewald, Hardwick, Peggy O'Neill, Barmy, Brendan. These are all the key pillars to one of the most wonderful times. Dylan Leach, yeah, true. Though that goes without saying. That's just implied. But they're either left or leaving. So don't just make Uze the new guy, the lonesome voice as to what we're going to hear. And I mean, all we hear from Richmond at the moment is, can we have some more money for your redevelopment? And it's like, well, actually, can you explain what's happening with the injuries? Can you explain where the club's at? Can you tell us where this kind of stuff is?
How come you've got 4 pages on Richmond?
On Richmond alone.
Because I started thinking about Richmond. I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing. Look, I just get that the injuries are there. We're still the only team that beat Sydney, but have a look who was there. It's a thankless task.
Yeah,
but
it is extraordinary.
Sydney's only loss and Richmond's only win.
I'm not expecting Richmond to win on the weekend, but I don't want Dreamtime at the G to turn into Nightmare at the G. I want them to just show some effort and have a crack and don't be witches' hats. They're better than witches' hats.
They are, but you have to cut them some slack. You've spoken about the people that are left. So they've left, but then also the injuries they've got. They've got 15, and you're probably 8 or 9 of them are in your starting 18. So your depth gets tested, but they didn't even try on the weekend.
No, they didn't.
They had centre square bounces where they actually looked okay. Nick Curvis in there, Prestia, Martin, and Bolton. They actually won a couple, but it was a bit late. Like Brisbane had already blown them away. They put him in there and got it. Dusty looked sore. He only had 5 kicks, 1 contested possession. He's carrying something. Yeah.
The hope's gone. They're just trying to get through. And they'd be doing so much work internally about what's going on with his injury toll. There's no doubt they'll be doing that. Maybe they have got to communicate it, but they'd be working extremely hard.
If I was Richmond, I would be changing the way you communicate with your fans, and I would say...
But what they might have done a post-game on the ground, but you'd already left.
Yeah, they did.
So you didn't
It's called on-demand content, Lynchy. On-demand. It's a big thing these days. I know you still listen to the wireless and stuff, but I can watch it in my own time.
If they played North Melbourne this week, they'd lose.
Oh, yeah.
I'd back North too.
They would. What I've seen I thought I'd seen the worst team the week before in North, and then just watch Richmond. I've had a couple of blockbusters the last couple of weeks.
Because there was a few things for the North, actually. I think, didn't they win clearances and contested ball was pretty good?
Quarter.
Yeah, so they've got the hopes coming back. But yeah, Richmond.
I never thought I'd say this on this program, but
flat.
Enough about Richmond and moving right along.
Well, you've read 4 pages.
Geez, it's like you had prepared a little bit for it.
Well, he left it
I knew
time.
that people would be on this program be asking me what I would think about Richmond, so I thought I'd just get it down. Sometimes it's best to get your thoughts written down.
Poor duffel coat's going to have to go through the dry cleaners after getting dragged through the gutter on the way home.
There was nothing like that.
No, right. The other side of the upside of the ladder, Sydney Swans. I was fortunate enough to go watch them in a game that you thought Carlton have got some injuries. They've probably got 5 of their best out. But after the first 15 minutes, how good was the Sydney Swans? And I'm not thinking like, you look at their elite, and their elite is the elite of the competition. You got Heaney, Goulden, Chad Warner's just gone to another level, ridiculous. Grundy in the ruck, Rowbottom down back. You chuck Papui's one of the really exciting small forwards. I reckon that next row is where they are elite. Rowbottom, Florent. I'll put Blakey in the top bracket. Who else is there? Just
Rampy. Like they've just covered all.
They just keep going. I've got my list here, but they just
forwards.
Keep gotten players there. So Florent, Cunningham, James Jordan.
Yeah, did a great job.
Again, McLean up forward. Melican doesn't touch the ball much, but he does a really good job. And they've been under-resourced a lot in recent times down the key post, down back. Hayward pops up. They're such a good side.
We'll talk about Sydney in the snapshot a bit earlier. We talk about a bit later in the program, I should say, when we talk about premiership favourites. They are currently the shortest price premiership favourite we've had all year.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Do we need to start talking them up as... Well, we are going to start talking them up as a premiership contender and a hot favourite to win the premiership. Does the conversation now go into what does Sydney need to do to overcome their sort of premiership hoodoo? Because they have lost their past 3 grand finals.
You speak about their players. They've still got their captain to come back.
Mills. They've still got plenty of
McCartan's still out. Parker's still out.
Yeah.
Well, Parker can't get a game. He'll probably miss a couple from the VFL. He gets suspended. Yeah. But their depth is sensational and found a way to stay up for a long period of time. I think they're the team to beat. There's a long way to go in the season.
It's the only team that's beaten them, funnily enough.
Yeah.
No, extraordinary. And the SCG on a night game full house, there is no better
best atmosphere
arena to watch football.
Where did
it's
they
incredible.
Still had them at 14 or 15, didn't he?
No, I had the SCG in the top 5 actually. No, the SCG was in the top 5 in the venue.
No, incredible. Full house. There were a few disgruntled Swans members though.
Really?
They're locked out. There was a lockout halfway through the first. There was a lockout of close to 1,000 people. And then someone was out there with a megaphone saying, we're at capacity, you're not getting in. But then they opened another gate down for partial viewing down the other end.
Sounds like, I always hear that story they tell about the first ever day-night World Series match where they always use it as a flex that Kerry Packer demanded they
open the gates. Yeah.
Indeed. What's your unpopular take? I think it's very popular to say that the Swans are the hottest ticket in town at the moment.
Unpopular?
What's your sort of outlandish statement from the weekend?
Maybe. Now, this is where me and you get even more pissed off from Simo leaving Harley Reid out of that Gold Coast game. So we haven't seen him live yet. Yeah. He's the best first-year player I can remember. And that's going back, since the draft. So I was drafted in 86.
Or 86.
86. And I can't remember a plate now. So before you were born, SANFL and the WAFL were super competitions. And players would stay, like Polly Farmer played 5 years as an elite player, but then come over and made a massive impact in the VFL. Cable, Russell Ebert, all these guys were superstars in their state. At 25, they might come over for a year or two. You'd swear this kid has been playing for Norwood for 6 years and won 2 McGarry medals.
Victorian kid.
Yeah, but same thing for the context of the story. Or he played for Coburg or Richmond top up.
Richmond VFL.
But it's come out after 6 years of elite performance in another state and just gone bang.
Yeah.
It is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, Nick Dacos, great first-year player, but looked like a kid, played halfback, one of the great first years. But this kid, he looks like a 26-year-old man that's just bullying superstars.
I mean, What do we recall about Chris Judd's first season?
Yeah, well, we had this conversation about 4 weeks ago. Game 6, he played against us, and we're going, he's a superstar. Now, but Chris was, at that stage, a bit more outside and that elite speed. Harley's getting in, pushing off people, kicking amazing goals. I don't think Chris was this type of player.
Not his first year.
Matt Rowell in the first 3 games.
Yeah.
But then hurt his shoulder at Geelong in game 4.
Yep.
So Matt probably came in with that same sort of impact. But this kid's gone 9 weeks now.
The only one, but it's the same thing, he played VFL, was Mickey Barlow when he came in as a mature age, but he was 26, 27.
And then he did his ACL.
What he's doing at the moment, Harley, is incredible. Like the centre square bounce goal where he just runs away, takes 3 bounces, knocks it over, and then he's don't argue on Clayton Oliver, then Petrarca. It's just, he's doing stuff that he shouldn't be able to do.
And there's not many players, as we know, like it's a lot harder to run and bounce the ball at a really high pace than you've got someone chasing that. You normally can get you. Now, the fact that he still had the pace to get away from Petrarca, but then kick at full speed from 50, man, amazing.
And the young 18-year-old playing inside mid just doesn't happen, as you just said. It does not happen. You've got to normally do an apprenticeship. You come in on the wing. I think I spent wing, half forward, half back. Like you get mix and match forward pocket. He's straight in the deep end, straight in the middle, and dominating.
He's like a Gary McIntosh coming across, who never came across from Norwood, but someone of those tough players from another state and just comes in. Brian Peake.
Brian, well, he got flown in and then helicoptered in.
So he was a superstar out of WA, Western Australian captain, I reckon he was, and choppered in for the first game.
Well, of course, Stephen Michael, they always tried to get him from WA, and he never went to the VFL.
He looks like the best version of all of them.
What's great about Harley Reid is that he not only has turned West Coast fortunes on field, but as a neutral observer, you will look at a West Coast Eagles game and want to watch it. Last year, it was like, that's just a percentage booster. I'm not going to be bothered with that. But now it's like West Coast is prime time. I want to watch the West Coast Eagles play because I'm going to see Harley Reid play.
Well, and you don't want to watch Richmond.
You don't want to watch Richmond. It's a lot more fun than watching Richmond at the moment.
And hasn't the draw got a bit different now that you used to think, percentage booster against West Coast? Thinking, oh, shit.
They've become formidable at home again as well.
Now, down back as well.
Yeah.
They've got their star experienced players just catching everything. McGovern, Barras.
Waterman at the other end.
He's
leading the Coleman.
That's insane what he's doing.
I mean, they were saying on SEN, so we're recording this on a Monday afternoon, and another sort of comparison about first-year players and whatnot. They were sort of saying on, I think it was Jared Waitley's program this morning, saying that Harley Reid is sort of the equivalent of what happens in the NBA with their sort of priority picks, that when their first draft pick comes into a team, now obviously it's a squad of 5 and a different sport, but it's just the impact
one player can make.
The impact player one player can make. And I know some people were very critical of the West Australians' coverage of Harley Reid over the summer, saying it was a bit excessive, but tell you what, Jake Boydell, the editor of the West Australian Sport, he's been on a winner here because their Harley Reid barracking and excessive back pages, they seem to be on the money.
They might be sitting back under a Cuban now thinking, pretty good.
He sold them a lot more newspapers and probably online subscriptions these days, but goodness me.
Is it number 9? He's number 9?
Yeah, number 9. Is he the greatest number 9?
Number 9 jumpers
and Peter Wilson
had a spike again.
Yeah.
How good is number 9?
Well, yeah, there's a generation of West Coast fans that have never had to buy a new jumper and have just stuck with the number 9 on the back of it.
Just different sizes each time.
Yeah, very, very good. But no, he's incredibly exciting. I think he's we'll mention the Snapshot, he's about $1.20 for the Rising Star. So is it winks like odds?
I'd be stiff if he didn't win the Rising Star.
The Rising Star this year is basically going to be the Harley Reid testimonial.
With an honourable mention to Sam Darcy?
Probably, yeah. Sam Darcy any other year might be a contender.
He's looked good, albeit a third-year player.
We'll get into that later. Tom, what's your outlandish statement?
Well, I've gone with it a couple of times. I'm going to go with it again, Lynchy. Spoke about it last week.
Steady.
We need to go to 16 teams.
Oh, that's good of you, Tom.
16. We've got Richmond faithful supporters that bleed black and yellow that are leaving at three-quarter time because of the depth's not there. So you take 100 players off the list. The players still get paid the same.
So you're saying
The players will still get the same pay.
Right.
You just go down to 16 teams, but you can go to the footy and know that your team's a chance to win.
You're going to name the teams that are getting built?
Well, no, but I'm just saying that North Melbourne...
You've been lobbying for 16 teams.
Yeah, but North Melbourne, you go and watch them, you know they're uncompetitive. And they were okay on the weekend. They still got beaten pretty comfortably in the end by Essendon. Richmond... for a number of reasons, are uncompetitive at the moment. West Coast had their moments. Hawthorn were better on the weekend. St Kilda are near impossible to watch. So if you go back to 16 teams, I'm not saying that you don't bring Tasmania in or anything like that. I think we got it wrong expanding to 18. I think we're going to get it wrong expanding to 20. Because I think you're going to have games that are unwatchable. People are going to switch off, and there is no way anyone sat there and watched the whole game of the Lions and Richmond on the weekend. There's no way.
I certainly wasn't one of them.
There's no way the week before everyone watched Gold Coast and North Melbourne or the Bulldogs and Richmond. There's people just turning off.
Most of us watched all of North Melbourne,
well,
Gold Coast.
So did I. I called it all. I called all of Richmond.
Are you just saying that because you've been rostered on for some pretty ordinary games the past couple of weeks? I'm seeing a trend here.
I think if you had 16 teams, it'd be ultra competitive. You've got 100 less players on the list, and in 5 or 10 years' time, 200 less players than what you're going to have on list. The depth is going to be better, and you can turn up and expect your team to win.
More teams always means more crap games.
I know what we need. More academies.
More academies.
More academies. Great Tasmanian academy.
You don't have an agenda there at all, do you? You're talking for the good of the game, or
grow the game, the whole pool,
the new 19th franchise. Oh, of course, of course. Yeah. So maybe scrap the draft and go back to zoning. Why don't we just do that?
No, we won't go that far. That's a bit drastic.
Okay, all right.
Until we get Tassie up and going. Well, one more.
Yep.
Rankin ran too far.
Yeah.
Everyone knew that.
He did run too far.
Yeah.
So it's a given he ran too far. But how many people run too far every week?
Well, Harley Reid.
15 metres is null and void. So it's got to be 20 metres. I get Rankin ran too far. Or just be a bit more particular with these guys kicking out. The guys that are running out of the square are near getting to the line.
Yeah, to 50.
Well, the AFL has back to the Rankin call.
It was right.
Absolutely was right. But I'm not saying...
Then she's saying there's heaps of missed.
Let's don't legalise that far. Let's legalise 20, though.
But you're saying that Adelaide was stiff to win that. None of the players heard the whistle and they still couldn't score. So they weren't robbed. Can we get that off the table?
I'm just sort of bringing in the drama, the theatre of it. We need that gives us another.
There's nothing better than the Adelaide Crows losing.
Well, you would say
controversial circumstances.
Yeah. And from a content maker's perspective, it is a wonderful thing because that means
Port Adelaide falling in with a second to go, just top the weekend
You'd
off.
be loving it, but you better say the Crows losing by close margins is a great result for content makers because that means we can use the right in front of me bloke.
Yeah.
That bloke needs to get a royalty or something. He needs to get named because he's been getting a good run, certainly the past year, but more than a decade ago since he did that. If you want an unpopular who should have bounced, actually, if you want to, speaking of Harley Reid, I think maybe in that little run against some of those bounces, I think he may have been holding the ball, I think.
But
no, I went back and watched it.
You went back and watched it?
He had 3 bounces from the centre circle to 50. That's.
But they're probably further than 15 metres. So the 15 metres is probably too short, isn't it? Because there's a lot of players that run more than 15.
15 metres, realistically, for players like that now, that's probably only 10 steps.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they're in full stride, probably even less, 9 steps.
Yeah.
So, the rule probably should be changed.
Yeah. Because
out to 20.
Because that's what they're adjudicating every week.
Yeah.
They're adjudicating 20 metres, or unless you're kicking out 30 metres.
And not to be a spoil sport or anything, but Harley Reid also has goal of the year with that chase against Petrarca as well.
So he's got close to goal of the year. He's got close to mark of the year.
Greatest
from a month ago.
Greatest
first year since Polly Farmer.
John Coleman.
You
played back then.
No, John. I was going to play. I was sub.
You were sub. You were the 19th man for Fitzroy that day. Yeah, that's right. Fun times. Actually, before we get on to the snapshot, you talked about Port winning the close one. Boys, how on earth did Hawthorn lose that? How do you lose that? Maybe not trying to score in the fourth quarter. Maybe trying to like defend the lead a bit too early. But
that has to be it. Like you look at it back, and they were in front because they were attacking. They had Hardwick in the forward line, and obviously the coach and staff, Sam Mitchell and his team, decided we're just going to try and hold on to this lead. And Lynchy knows when you try and save a game, it is the worst thing you can do. Zach Butters gets off the chain, has 17 in the last quarter. They throw Hardwick back. They tried to save the game. They're going wide from kicking. Just keep playing the way. All they have to do is kick 1 or 2 goals, and it's all over. So just play the way you're going.
Just to rip that scab off again. What was it Roosie described? It was the worst 52 seconds in AFL history.
Hunt. I reckon was that the worst 30 seconds?
Well, it was the worst 44. I think was the shot was at 33, but the turnover on the halfback was 44 seconds.
Port Adelaide going to send a bottle of Jack Daniels to Steve Hocking for the 666 rule? Because that pretty much...
And that is good. Yeah, that is good.
Because I love the 6. I'm pro 666.
In our day, we were playing, we'd be just thrown all back, getting numbers around the ball, can't score.
Question without notice for you two. What was the worst loss? That would be one of the, like, if you're a Hawthorn player, that's got to go down as one of the worst losses of your career. Are there losses like that stand out from your careers? Yeah. And what happened? But what are the ones that first come to mind?
Well, firstly, the Hawthorn one. I don't think they should do their heads in about it. I reckon the players and the coach review the buggery out of it and see what they can learn out of it. But for me, watching them as a neutral sport, I think, geez, that was pretty good. They dominated for big chunks, so don't do your heading. The worst loss I've been involved with? Yeah. Well, we've discussed about this for last year, wasn't it? Or early this year?
I think we may have, yes.
It was Fitzroy at Footy Park.
Oh, yeah.
When we were up by 20-odd points with 4 minutes to go and got done.
Absolute
kick
murder.
After the siren.
Well, actually, we talk about the Crows losing close ones. Every time it's karma. Karma for Rod Jamison.
Oh, yes. No good.
Absolute murder. Absolute murder. What,
Getting back to that, though.
Do you recall a loss like that in your career?
Yeah, I recall a win, but Port will... They'll always talk about that win. So mine was the miracle on grass where Ash McGrath kicks the goal.
Oh, yes. So that's I'd left the stadium that day.
Oh, did you? You left.
Yeah, I left.
50-odd points down.
I mean, I left with, 119-point loss. You left for that.
So
anyway.
that's a win, and you still always remember that. The best win or the miracle on grass, that'll be spoken about, the Port Adelaide win. The loss would be the 2020 prelim final against Richmond.
I can go through that with you if you like.
Nah, that was the one that we should have won. We should have been further in front, and then we got a couple of dodgy calls late, deliberate, and
Desmond could have taken the mark.
Richmond.
Anyway,
great win from Port, but is that win covering over a few issues?
But
they've had.
Port are the most frustrating team to watch and support for anyone out there. They never win easy. Yeah. Like Geelong, they had the game over at quarter time, and they just let them back, and they fall in by a goal. So they play outstanding footy against Geelong in Geelong the week before, and then turn up and play like that against all. Yeah, it's wallpapered the cracks by winning, but again, they just don't win easy.
You talk about Port. They got comfortably in front against Geelong and just won. Hawthorn got comfortably in front against Port and just lost. Are coaches now looking at it and going, we've got to find better ways to save games and attack? Are they going too early with defence? Are we seeing that happen a bit too much?
Well, maybe it's something they haven't really spent a lot of time on. So that's probably not the major thing that Hawthorn are looking at.
I'm talking in general because it seems to be a bit of a trend.
The momentum in footy is the biggest thing now. We've seen it with Brisbane this year as well. Their inability to stop that momentum when it goes against them. So I think teams need to strategise. Whether it's offensively, how you move the footy, whether you take the sting out for a couple of minutes, just control the footy, take a few uncontested marks. If you get a couple kicked against you, the momentum swings are the biggest thing in AFL footy, and you've got to limit it when you don't have momentum and maximise it when you do. I think it's a focus for all teams. It should be when you've got it, you've got to put your foot on the throat, score as heavily as you can. When you don't have it, you've got to find a way just to stem that momentum. If you get 2 or 3 against you, you've got to find a way to get the next goal and take 5 minutes off the clock.
It's used to be able to just start a fight. That's what it was. Just wrestle.
That sounds like a better solution.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think. I reckon David Parkins sent everyone out onto the ground at Windy Hill before the game.
This is in your Fitzroy
start
days.
A wrestle. Just start with your opponent. Everyone. You're looking around, you got Ronnie Andrews there. You're like, no, I'm right.
Actually, speaking of wrestles and Windy Hill, it was the 50th anniversary of the Windy Hill Brawl on the weekend.
Really? How time flies.
If you want proper violence in football, not that we should have that anymore.
He was that old, but Dane Zorko, 35.
We'll get onto that.
Side bottom heaps. We'll get onto it, will we?
Yeah, in the snapshot, which is coming up next.
Yeah.
This is the
I should have read the running.
No, that's
You're not in
okay.
it. You're not allowed.
Oh, right. So that's why I'm giving them content now, so you can take it.
35 by name, 35 by age, and 35 by disposals.
35. And would have been last year his contract. Would have
to go again.
Have to.
We'll talk about that and more next in the Snapshot.
All the betting trends you need to know from the world of footy. This is the Snapshot.
All right, Rocky, it's Snapshot time as part of Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Ryan is off this week. He's having a bit of a holiday. Good on him.
Incredible.
So
Good on him.
I've been brought back in.
Yeah.
Well, I did it a couple of weeks ago, and then Ryan came back, and then I came back.
And you were 0-2 in the multi, so we do need to get one. So you're going to have to bounce back.
I'm confident. I've done my research. I've done my homework. You've seen the notes.
Hopefully you haven't put Richmond in or something silly like that.
There's no Richmond involved in the multi this week, but there may be Richmond involved in some futures forecasts that we're going to do. So that's what I thought we'd do on the Snapshot this week.
Yep.
I figured we'd just update where we are on the futures forecasting.
Almost mid-season.
Well, there'd be a lot of people that would have futures multis just riding it out. And I think some are confident about certain markets, and we'll get to that in a second. But, I mean, it's clear that the flag is not in the bag for anyone. So far in season 2024, Neds has had 4 teams listed as flag favourites after round 11. So that's pretty impressive. So obviously we started with Collingwood at $5, then the Cats, and then the Giants. And as of today, so we're recording this on the Monday afternoon leading into round 11, the Sydney Swans at $3.75, and that is the shortest the flag odds have been this season so far.
Yeah, we don't want to declare them. We know what happened when we did that a couple of years ago.
Never.
Geelong wiped them, but they're as good as anyone in the competition, and they had a bit of a down year last year off that, but they're back to their absolute best, and rightfully so. They are premiership favourites. It's incredible their only loss was against Richmond, and Richmond's only win was against Sydney. It's
have a look who was playing for Richmond that day and who's not available for Richmond at the moment. We'll go into that later. I think I mentioned that earlier in the show. But it'd be very interesting, speaking of previous premiership favourites, the Cats and Giants at Geelong this weekend at GMHBA Stadium as well. And you may recall the Giants actually beat them at Geelong last year by 7 points. So that could be one of the more interesting betting games of the round.
Yeah, I think so. And Geelong have certainly come back since you wanted them to be shit a couple of weeks ago.
I did.
In this podcast.
They're 0-3 since I said that.
But the Giants have certainly come off as well.
I had them as premiership.
Yeah,
faves.
They've had a couple of injuries and they haven't got the continuity, but the last couple of weeks, they've been disappointing against Essendon and the Bulldogs. I know it was a wet weather game, but Geelong will want to bounce back. I think Tom Hawkins will play, so record-breaking game. He'll go to the most capped Geelong player ever. So I'd be leaning towards Geelong because they got beaten, we know, down there a couple of weeks ago by Port Adelaide. Bad loss against the Gold Coast Suns.
I mean, and what about that scoreline too? That was straight out of 1994, those numbers.
Incredible, 163 or whatever it was to 100.
Who needs defence?
Nah.
Defence, footy's never been for defenders anyway. Going back to the premiership market, of course, the Magpies, they've gotten their groove back on there, about to a solid $7. And despite being out of the 8 this weekend, currently sitting on 10th on the ladder, Carlton are actually still in the third line of betting for the premiership at $7.50.
It's open. Essendon, nowhere to be seen.
Well, no, the second place Bombers, there's number 2 on the ladder, $15, equal with Brisbane to win the flag at the moment, $15. But some of the Neds punters have actually got on a bit of the Essendon edge, should I say.
Essendon edge.
The Essendon edge. Someone's chucked on $2,500 on the Dons at $41 just recently to win the flag.
They've got a soft enough draw over the next couple of weeks to nearly secure a final spot. It's going to be close. Their percentage isn't great, but they got Richmond this week.
That's 10 goals plus.
And then the Suns up here, so that's a good challenge for them. Carlton. So their draw does get harder after this one, but North Melbourne and Richmond gives them a couple of wins.
I'll tell you what, no, 1 week at a time and all, but Essendon and Carlton on King's birthday eve is going to be the biggest game those two have played for in about 25 years.
Carlton played in a prelim last year, or you mean them?
No, between both the Bombers and Blues, not the. Yeah,
I got you.
No, that's what I meant. A question: do you think are Essendon a flash in the pan, or can we trust them?
No, I don't think. I think they'll come off in the second half of the year. Like their percentage, they've just fallen in a few times. They've obviously won enough games. But I don't see it being sustainable for them, I don't think.
And in terms of the top 8, because there's the fluctuations are there. What position was Port Adelaide in before they had their freakish win? They
were in the live ladder. They were 9th,
and now they're in the top 4.
So it's such an even competition. You've got
who do you have as a write-off though? I mean, outside of the obvious ones, so not the bottom 4 teams, but out of the ones who are still in contention, who would you just go, strike them through? The Saints?
Yeah, well, no, the Saints are gone. I think only the top 12 can play finals. So you've got the Crows, put a line through them, St Kilda a line, Hawthorn, West Coast, Richmond North.
Yeah.
Brisbane, 12th, they're starting to play better footy. But
got some percentage on the weekend.
But do they play Hawthorn, they get close enough going to the bye, then can they play the second half of the season? But the Bulldogs, they're 11th. They're just so inconsistent. They'll probably win Friday night. Thursday night. Thursday night. And then
Swans.
Carlton have come off. Freo, better. Gold Coast. And then Melbourne even. They get touched up by West Coast. It's a very open season beside the Sydney Swans, I think. So I think the top 12 can still play finals. I think it's Sydney's to lose at the moment.
Ladder predictor on the AFL website is going to be a lot of fun at the moment, as are live ladders. Now, from the complete opposite of who's winning the premiership to who's winning the wooden spoon, least wins. Now, the winless North Melbourne are $1.20. They're a lock for the wooden spoon. You would think that, but the back-to-back thumpings my Tigers have seen over the past weeks, Richmond are now $3.50 for least wins / wooden spoon. They were $12 at the start of the season, so it's now a two-way contest between North Melbourne and Richmond for the wooden spoon, because the other two in the market, Hawthorn and West Coast, are both at $101. Yeah. So is North still a lock, or Richmond in a position to take it off?
Richmond are obviously going to get players back, but if North were to play Richmond this week, I'd be tipping North.
I would too.
From what I've seen over the last fortnight.
I'd be back in the Kangaroos as well.
So I don't think it's a lock that it's North, but it's one of those two teams. I think the Eagles will win some games. Hawthorn and St Kilda will. So it could be one win, though. There could be two teams on one win at the end of the season.
Oh, let's hope not. And I mean that for both teams, obviously, not just the team I bag for. Speaking of absolute locks, rising stars. Now, it's obvious that Harley Reid, he's at Winks odds. In fact, a little bit higher than what Winks was at back in the day. $1.20 to win the rising star. Probably the best first-year player we've ever seen. Lynchy touched on that earlier on the program. In terms of Harley Reid betting we've seen on the Rising Star, we took $250 bet at $3 in late Feb on Harley Reid. The biggest bet we have on him is about $3,000 at $1.90. That was taken in late April, so pretty much after
seeing him early.
Yeah, I think it may have been just after Gather Round. He had that game out in Mount Barker. But a heap of futures multis are pretty much banking on Harley Reid to win the Rising Star. What I'm curious, if we removed Harley Reid out of the field for Rising Star, and I wouldn't be surprised if this market came into consideration closer to it. So Rising Star without Harley Reid in it, who would you have penciled in this year?
It's a tough one. I'll have to pull up the names. Sorry, mate. Just duck down over here.
So you got Sam Darcy, Georgie Wardlaw.
Well, Darcy's been good.
Colby McKercher, one of the great names in general.
Just looking for that market.
Caleb Windsor, Darcy Wilson.
You'd probably say Darcy. Darcy was outstanding again on the weekend. And obviously second. But like Dempsey, there's some good young talent coming through.
You mean Sam Darcy or Darcy Wilson?
No, Sam Darcy. Yep. Sam Darcy. Darcy Wilson's been playing well, a couple at North Melbourne as well, but I think Sam Darcy's the clear standout second. Harley Reid, they'll have to take him out in the next 3 or 4 weeks. If he plays the way he has been, I think by round 15 they'll just take him out and get a new market. Who comes second?
We'll keep an eye on that as well, because yes, Harley Reid at the moment, I think one stage Winks, it'll be Winks at $1.05.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the Rising Star this year will be the Harley Reid testimonial. No doubt about that. Speaking of awards, Harley Reid will probably win during his career. The Brownlow bubble. Now, Nick Dacos, 41 touches on the weekend, 14 clearances, 7 score involvements. Much said about that. Currently in the second line of Brownlow betting at $5.50. Isaac Heaney, he's the favourite at the moment. Solid performance on the weekend. He's combined in the midfield with Chad Warner for a combined 52 disposals, 6 goals and 26 score involvements in the Swannies' 52-point win over the Blues on Friday night. But not quite one for Brownlow betting, but you can look at the combo options between midfielders and how many touches they get for a game. So that's one to keep an eye out there, punters. But I'd like to get outside of the Brownlow field. Harley Reid, by the way, $81 for the Brownlow. I
don't think you'll win the Brownlow.
Not
this year.
He might be a very good contender for most votes at West Coast, though, if you look at that market.
Maybe. Waterman will be up there.
But what I'd like to touch on here, Rocky, a bit beyond the Brownlow, but a weekend that was very close to your heart because your fellow bald magnet brethren got a lot of leather poisoning. Brethren, leather poisoning on the weekend. So one, to keep note for people's same-game multis, I reckon, 2 players that got the 40-plus on the weekend.
Yeah.
2, I should say. Noah Anderson, 42 on Thursday in the Suns' big win over the Cats. We mentioned Nick Dacos earlier. We had 5 players in the over 35 category. So Sam Flanders, 37. Lockie Neal, 36. Matt Rowell, Adam Treloar, and Dane Zorko, 35. Phenomenal.
Yeah, incredible. It looked like Zorko and Neal were going to get 40-plus as well. So big stat games. And as you see these blowouts, you're going to see more and more. So the coaches' votes just came through as well. So Heaney got the 8, Chad Warner the 10. So Sydney may take votes off each other. I'm not sure Dacos, he probably gets the 3, but Pendlebury was outstanding early in that game. So he's scoring involvements. I think he kicked the first 2 goals and then had 2 or 3 goal assists after that. So he may pinch 3 there.
We're going to get a player get to the 50 this year?
I think so. I think so. Dacos or someone like that. Lockie Neal still, Zorko, those guys, the big stat getters, and they play those bottom teams that unfortunately at times are uncompetitive. They'll stat right up.
And your old mate Zorko?
Yep.
Pretty good for an old bloke. Give him another year?
I think so. I think you have to the way he's playing. He's been sort of forced into that role with Kitty Coleman going out across half back and McKenna missing a few weeks as well. So he's found his niche back there as well. He's probably thinking, how good's footy?
And also, in terms of more ball magnets, 18 players over 30-plus disposals.
Plenty of value out there.
Plenty of value out there. I'm curious, are you better to go the over-under in terms of set players disposals for a match, or should you go the jugular and go, no, I'm going to back them for 35 plus? What would you do?
I've always gone the plus, 35 plus, but that's probably why I never won. So maybe go the line.
How many times did you get over 40, by the way?
10, I think.
10. Just 10.
Just the 10 times over 40.
And what did you get in that Sandfall game one day?
57.
57,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, very good. Now, speaking of, not Port Adelaide, a tangent, but you played for Port Adelaide Magpies. Port Adelaide Power. It ain't over till it's over, Rocky. Special shout out to any punters who took Port in the live betting.
Yeah, they would have got some decent odds on
Sunday. Well, during the fourth quarter, Port was paying at $7.50 at the start of the fourth quarter, and midway in the fourth quarter, they got out to 15. So anyone who got out to that,
I think with a minute to go, I don't know when it finishes. A minute to go, you would have had to have them at 50-1. Like the chances of kicking 2 goals in 30 seconds, they're slim. Like probably the first time we've seen it.
Well, I think Lynchy mentioned earlier the Richmond Gold Coast game in Cairns back in the day, but
that was nearly a minute though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a minute. That was 30 seconds. I'll have to look into that, but no, it ain't over till it's over, as they say. And shout out to anyone who did have a crack at Port in the live one. Another one here to take note of going into the future is the House of Pain is back. Or should I say the House of Harley? Now, West Coast, they have won 3 of their last 4 games at Optus Stadium with an average winning margin of 37 points. So maybe perhaps taking the Eagles at home 1-39 would be a pretty good value play in the future. The only loss that they had in their past 4 was, of course, that 1-goal defeat by the Bombers in round 8. And to Essendon's credit, that's actually looking like a pretty good win at the time. A lot of Bombers fans thought, oh, geez, we nearly blew it against West Coast. A bit of debate coming out WA way this week and in recent weeks has been about home ground advantage and the unfairness of it. I'm curious because you played for an interstate club, or an interstate club outside, a non-Victorian team, I should say. I still refer to them as interstate clubs, just as the born and bred Victorian. How much of a difference is the home ground advantage? And you're probably speaking more from your Port days than your Brisbane days. Yeah. What's the difference between the home ground advantage in a team that's in a two-team town compared to a 10-team town at the neutral grounds?
The home ground advantage, I think, gets eaten up maybe a little bit, but it's the same for an interstate team when they play in Melbourne. It's a lot harder to go there and win. So maybe you lose it a little bit when you've got Carlton and Collingwood playing at the MCG or something like that, there's certainly a home ground advantage. But anyone that says it's equal or because the Perth teams get 12
business class,
12 business class.
Yes.
I don't think there's even 12 business class seats on the flights they go on.
Not on Virgin, no.
And the fact that they can even consider that and say that that's offsets the advantage. That's a joke. Like when you travel interstate, so you leave your home an hour or 2 hours before the flight. So you get to the airport, you've got an hour before your flight, you've got to be all checked in together. You sit at the lounge for an hour, then they've got a minimum sort of 4 hour, 5 hour flight, then an hour bus ride when they land in Melbourne to their hotel or train. It's a 7-8 hour process for them, where if you're playing at home, it's so much easier. So I think the Perth teams certainly have it a lot harder than anyone else in the competition, but to be an interstate club is certainly a lot harder than being in Melbourne.
But I think winning in Perth is becoming harder.
Yeah, 100%. It's a lot harder now. The West Coast, a couple of years ago it wasn't, or 12 months ago it wasn't. No. But now it is, when they're up and about. Melbourne found out firsthand yesterday.
They most certainly did. In fact, I remember there was a phase where Fremantle and West Coast would always win at Subiaco.
Yep.
And whoever played them, whoever got beaten by them, wouldn't win the following week when they returned from Perth. Right. So hence, when Subiaco had a reputation of the House of Pain.
Well, Brisbane had a home ground advantage the last couple of years.
Yes.
They were nearly undefeated there.
The Gabatoir. Well, yes. Well, they've had a couple of big wins there recently. But no, the home ground advantage debate is always an interesting one. But if you're looking for fairness and equalisation in the fixture, we haven't seen it since about 1986.
No,
so it's a lost cause.
Speaking
of lost causes, or not lost causes, here's something we're still hopeful for. It's the multi. Okay. As is custom on this program, we've got to recap last week's multi.
We're out Thursday night.
You and Ryan, you were out. You were out on Friday night. You backed the Swans 1-39 against Carlton.
Ryan's bet.
That was Ryan.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the Swans won by 52 points. So come on, Ryan.
Stiff.
Maybe it says more about the Swans than it says about what Ryan was predicting. One of the more reliable bets, certainly in probably the past 3 years, has been Collingwood 1-39 against the Crows. $2.10 if you don't mind.
Ryan's bet.
That's very good. Ollie Wines 25 plus disposals. That was actually the bet was actually void because he.
Oh.
Yep.
So I didn't lose a leg. That was mine.
Yep. So that we won't. I won't play the bow bow sound effect on that one. And Lockie Neal 30 plus disposals.
35. That was 37. Pretty comfortable.
So we go again.
Dust ourselves off. You're kicking it off with the first two. So you're going to go, I think.
I am going to kick us off. I want to get
both
my ones out of the way.
1:45 games on Saturday afternoon.
2 games at the same time on a Saturday afternoon. Old
Strange.
School. You doing around the grounds or something? A Triple M?
Nah, nothing this week. Weekend off.
Anyway, Carlton and Gold Coast Suns at Marvel Stadium on the weekend. Of course, last year the Suns did play Carlton after a 2-week stint in Darwin. Everyone thought the Suns would beat. This would be a chance for the Suns to prove themselves. And Carlton, they might sack Voss if. They lost it, but then we saw what happened and fate changed. I think the Suns are a good chance here. I think we're in for another close one. The line has the Suns at 16.5, favouring Carlton, obviously. So I'm going to take the Suns to cover it.
Yes.
At 16.5. And, of course, also happening on Saturday afternoon is the North Melbourne and Port Adelaide clash in Hobart at Blundstone Arena, Bell Reeve Oval. This is more for the bit of theatre of it, and he's been playing some great footy at the moment, and he'd probably love to do it. I've just got Jason Horne-Francis for any-time goal kicker.
Yeah, I think that'll be comfortable. He'll be up and about for that one. And then I'll go at the game straight after that, Geelong take on the Giants. I'm going to take Tom Stewart plus 25 disposals. And then Sunday afternoon, I think Melbourne will get hold of St Kilda. They'll want to bounce back. Alternate handicaps, I'm going to take them minus 22.5.
At $2.05,
yeah, good value.
That's excellent value. So just recapping, the Suns to cover at 16.5 against Carlton. Jason Horne-Francis, anytime goal scorer for Port against the Kangas in Hobart. Tom Stewart, 25 plus for the Cats against the Giants. And Melbourne, 22.5 in the alternative handicap. Bag that all up. $10.54.
Ooh.
You got a good feeling about this one?
Yeah, that's juicy. I like that.
Yeah, that's available on the Neds app in the AFL section and in the open group. So have a look at that one and get involved. Ryan will be back here next week, I hope.
Let's get this multi up.
If we get it up, maybe I continue doing this segment.
Yep. You're listening to Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions.
You are listening to AFL Unpopular Opinions here on Neds Lynch. Tom Rockliff. Alastair Lynch is back with us. Now, boys, it is Sir Doug Nicholls' round at the moment, or fortnight, and it's one of the more looked forward to occasions in the footy calendar each year. I know
Clubs do it so well.
Yeah.
Like they do with a lot of things, with the Sir Doug Nicholls round. No, Dill, I didn't play with Sir Doug either at Fitzroy.
No.
He finished pre-season before me.
I just did the pre-season before you. Yeah, he used to have his locker, though.
Yeah.
That's right. And I ask this every single week as we wrap up here on Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions. What are we looking forward to in round 11? Can you believe it? Round 11 already this weekend. Lynchy, what's on your to-do list?
Well, I'm looking forward to, I'll be down at Geelong GMHBA Stadium, but the game on beforehand is Carlton and the Suns at Marvel Stadium. It was this time last year that the Suns had come off 2 great wins up in Darwin. I reckon one was the Bulldogs and one was the Adelaide Crows. They came to the MCG in round 11 to take on Carlton. Had hardly won a game and they were on their knees, and it was the time to grow up for the Gold Coast. The same thing presents now. They're in the 8th. They're sitting in 8th position. If they can roll Carlton and then head back home, they're going to set themselves up for their first ever finals berth. But this one, you know what the disappointing part will be? If they lose, we go, oh, well, that's
seen this movie
that's
before.
the Gold Coast. That's what happens. They win in Darwin, win on the Gold Coast, but don't win down here. You've got a big club who's struggling at the moment with a few injuries.
Well, they're not in the 8.
You've got to get this done. They've got to get this done.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to that.
I've backed Gold Coast at the line in the multi, and Tom will recap that in a minute. But no, that should be a ripper. Now, you said you're at Geelong this weekend. You're actually in the commentary box this weekend.
In the commentary box, yes.
So you're not on the boundary. Special comments?
Don't think so. Up there.
Not sure yet.
Not sure?
No, no.
Check your roster.
Yeah, I think I am.
You're actually...
The man.
Upstairs.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. So, what games?
Geelong and whoever they're playing.
The Giants. That's a pretty good game. That's
one
a
game I'm looking forward to.
That's a real good game. And then the next one is Hawthorn-Brisbane, which could be a real good game on Sunday too. So, no, a couple of beauties.
Yeah, no. And extra Lynchy for all your Lynchy all us Lynchy fans on Fox this weekend.
I know you love the AFL fixturing.
Yes.
Can you explain to me why they're starting 2 games at 1:45 on Saturday afternoon?
Well, I don't mind that. It's
North and
Port,
Carlton and Suns at exactly the same time. Why wouldn't they just have a quarter difference?
So, yeah, because usually they do 1:45 and then 2:10. That's interesting. Speaking of AFL fixturing, I've got an article in the AFL Record coming out in a couple of weeks' time about the evolution of the fixture.
Richmond walkouts.
Yeah, it's about it's a style guide. It's an etiquette guide.
10 years in the evolution of a Richmond supporter.
Yeah, that's it. No. So stay tuned. It's actually.
What are you looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to Thursday night. I think Western Bulldogs Sydney could be a very interesting game because the Bulldogs have
turned a corner.
They have turned a corner and found a bit of mojo, and it's on the Bulldogs' home deck. So if the Dogs can take it up to the Swans, even if they get close to them, I think it's going to regain far more respect to the Western Bulldogs. Because I know we were talking on this show a couple of weeks ago as to how the Dogs players would be feeling with all the pressure on Bevo, but they've turned the corner. And
it's probably the value bet of the round. We are a betting show.
We are.
Neds. You can get
that's a good point there, Tom.
Time of record. Lynch, you obviously can't talk about it, but nearly 4 o'clock on Monday afternoon, $2.50 for the Dogs. That's good value because they are a chance to win because you just don't know what you're going to get with them.
No. And speaking of the 2 multiple games on a Saturday afternoon, I've got a bit of a conspiracy theory here.
Yeah.
North Melbourne, Port Adelaide in Hobart.
Yeah.
I reckon they have put it in Hobart 2 years in a row because the AFL are trying to protect Jason Horne-Francis from actually from dealing with disgruntled local North Melbourne fans.
All 30 of them.
Yep. They don't want the scenes that happened to Tom Scully when he returned against Melbourne GWS.
I don't think it'd bother him too much, and I don't think
he's playing great footy, by the way. There'd be a lot of
1,000 North Melbourne supporters turn up, wouldn't they? Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, let's recap the multi-deal while we're talking about Saturday afternoon. We're taking the Gold Coast Suns at the line, plus 16.5 at $1.90 against Carlton. Jason Horne-Francis, your boy. Anytime goal scorer at $1.44.
Bit of theatre.
And then straight into the Cats and Giants. So we've got a big Saturday afternoon. Tom Stewart to have 25 plus against the Giants at $1.88. And Melbourne on Sunday afternoon alternate line handicap minus 22.5 at $2.05. I think I haven't got it there, but
it's about $10.50.
Yeah, I think you said that.
It's available on the Neds app.
$10.54.
$10.54 to be exact. Thank you very much, Tom. Actually, speaking of Melbourne and St Kilda, before we go, do we put a line through the St Kilda of 2024? They done?
Finished. They're horrible.
Stick a fork in them?
Yeah, I think they're cooked.
I think Ross got the most out of them last year, but they're struggling big time. They reckon they've got a war chest, don't they, that they're going to go and spend.
So does North Melbourne, apparently. So
that's the challenge, though. You want to be playing well before you try to spend your war chest, otherwise no one's going to come and you'll spend overs on a B grader.
And, of course, for your Harley Reid fixed Adelaide West Coast at 4:40 at Adelaide Oval on Sunday.
Go West Coast.
Go, yeah, well, I'll be watching that pretty much to watch Harley Reid like everyone else. They are the Sunday twilight is no longer the graveyard shift. It's Harley Reid time. All right, this has been Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions for another week, and do catch my other podcast, What's Wrong with Richmond. That'll be on your feed. No, I kid you not.
That was for 70% of this podcast today.
You wanted
4 pages.
4.
Jeez.
I do research for this show. I do my work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alastair.
Double coat come off 10-minute mark of the second quarter. Dragged it through
at the 10-minute mark of the second quarter, we all found out we were getting free Big Macs because the lines are going plus 70 points. Right. I actually cashed in on that free Big Mac today. It was
beautiful.
Yeah, being belted never tasted so good. Thank you, Alastair.
Thank you, Dill.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Dill. Thanks, Richie.
Good work.
Like, subscribe. You know the drill with this show. Enjoy your footy. Enjoy life. Enjoy it all. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Enjoyed the podcasts? Remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.